Buddhism, officially introduced in the 2nd century BC by Venerable Mahinda of South India to King Devanahampisa, is the religion followed by the majority of Sri Lankans. Sri Lanka is the world's oldest Buddhist country, with the continuing practice of the religion throughout the millennia and acting as the current center of Theravada Buddhism. In Sri Lanka, much of the architecture has been built to honor the Lord Buddha, founder of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. With the propagation of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, great religious zeal was projected to the construction of building stupas, monasteries, and temples to venerate the sacred relics of the Buddha. Architecture in the ancient capitals of Sri Lanka all contribute to displaying rich varieties of architectural form and style. Even in their ruined conditions, the buildings of ancient Sri Lanka provide a cultural heritage and architectural significance, which is important to modern Sri Lankan culture. Buddhism has had a major influence on architecture, including many other aspects of Sri Lankan life. Therefore, this paper will outline several ancient capitals in Sri Lanka: Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Kandy, Dikwela, Colombo District, and Brickfields, that have all beautifully constructed architectural sites which continue in providing Sri Lankans a place to venerate the Lord Buddha. Ancient sites of Anuradhapura. The sacred city of Anuradhapura is world famous for its well-preserved ruins of the great Sri Lankan civilization. Anuradhapura is famously known for its many sites configured in honoring the Buddha. The fascinating ancient ruins, including huge bell-shaped stupas built of small sun-dried bricks, temples, sculptures, and palaces and ancient drinking water reservoirs. Anuradhapura is one of the most extensive ruins in the world and is one of the most sacred Buddhist pilgrimage cities. Historically, Anuradhapura was a great monastic center as well as a royal capital, with magnificent monasteries rising to many stories, roofed with gilt bronze or tiles of burnt clay, glazed in brilliant colors. With the introduction of Buddhism, the city gained more prominence and the great building eras began, in which ancient cities were constructed. The ancient sites of Anuradhapura that are mentioned in this paper are Sri Mahabodhi, Samadhi Buddha statue, Anuvakana Buddha statue, stupas specifically Thuparama Stupa, Jetavarhama Stupa, Misraveti Stupa, Abhiyagira Debaga Stupa, and the Ruwanveli. Anuradhapura is a place that holds many beautiful ancient relics in statues and monastery complexes, which many Buddhists revere. Although statues and monasteries were of rather common occurrence during the great building era in Anuradhapura, rare sites were also developed. One of these sites is where the Sri Mahabodhi originated. This sacred fig tree is said to be sprouted from the original Bodhi tree under which the historical Buddha attained enlightenment. Buddha's fig tree was brought to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BC by Thiri Sangita, daughter of Emperor Asoka and founder of an order of Buddhist nuns. Sri Mahabodhi was planted in 288 BC and is the oldest living human-planted tree in the world with a known planting date, which is quite a rarity. It was planted on a high terrace about 6.5 meters above the ground, surrounded by railings. Today, it is one of the most sacred relics to Buddhists in Sri Lanka and is widely respected by Buddhists all over the world. Anuradhapura also houses the famously known Samadhi Bodhi statue, which is recognized for its statuesque representation of the Buddha in a calming meditative state. This magnificent 8-foot-tall statue is sculpted out of beautiful granite, displaying the Lord Buddha seated under a Bodhi tree in the serene state of Samadhi, or deep meditation. The Bodhi sits in a cross-legged position with upturned palms, placed one over the other in his lap, again signifying a posture of concentrated meditation. The expression on the Buddha's face betrays neither happiness nor sorrow, but a deep contemplation. There's a classical poem depicting the Samadhi Buddha statue. Buddha sitting in meditation, calm face without agitation. His teachings not confined just to Indian nation, but implies to the whole world of pollution, which is headed towards destruction. He prescribes the universal solution, the path of wisdom, morality, and concentration. May all walk on this path. This statue is considered the finest classical masterpiece of the Lord Buddha in his meditative state, and is a statue intended for Buddhists in Sri Lanka to recognize and attempt to replicate. The Avukana Buddha statue is another statue of the Lord Buddha, which is mostly recognized for its vastness and height. The Avukana statue is one of the largest statues in Sri Lanka. The enormously tall statue, carved out of solid granite, towers a total of 42 feet in height, including the pedestal. The statue dates back to the reign of King Dasusena in the 5th century. The right hand depicts Abhaya Mudra, which represents the gesture of fearlessness, also called the gesture of renunciation. The Buddha has his upper right hand slightly elevated with his palm turned outwards, indicating freedom from fear. The left hand indicates that he is holding up his robe. One of the special features, different from other statues of the Buddha, is that both of the Buddha's hands are facing upwards. The Avukana Buddha statue is another statue of great importance for Sri Lanka, because it is a way for Sri Lankans to honor the Lord Buddha. The earliest monument found in Sri Lanka is the stupa. The stupa is the earliest Buddhist religious monument and was originally only a simple mound made of mud or clay to cover relics of the Buddha. Fundamentally, a stupa is essentially made up of the following 5 constituents: a square base, a hemispherical dome, a conical spire, or a pyramidal structure on the top of the building, a crescent moon, and a circular disc seated on top of the square base. After the passing away of the Buddha, his remains were cremated and the ashes divided and buried under sacred stupas. During the 3rd century BC, after his conversion to Buddhism, the Emperor Asoka had several thousand stupas built at sacred sites in India. In these stupas were enshrined relics of the Buddha, which Buddhists venerated in the past and continue to do today. There are several stupas in Anuradhapura, but the ones with paper covers are Thiruparamaya, Jetavaranama, Mir Shiveti, Abhayagiri Dabaga, Ruwanweliseya, Pabarama, and Teovana. The Thiruparama stupa is considered the first stupa built in Sri Lanka after the introduction of Buddhism. Thirumahinda, Emperor Asoka's son, introduced Theravada Buddhism and Chaitya worship to Sri Lanka. At Mahinda's request, King Devanahimpitisa built Thirupara, which is considered one of the smaller stupas in Anuradhapura. Nevertheless, it is very sacred to Buddhists, as they believe it enshrines the collarbone of the Buddha. King Mahansan has the honor of being the creator of the Jetavana-rama, another superbly recognized stupa in Anuradhapura. Jetavana-rama is the largest stupa built in Sri Lanka, with a height estimated to be an enormous 400 feet. Jetavana-rama is also considered the largest stupa in the world. To illustrate the vastness of this stupa, a description of Jetavana-rama is needed. Approximately 93,300,000 baked bricks were used to build the stupa. The compound covers approximately 8 acres and once housed over 300 Buddhist monks. One side of the stupa is 576 feet in depth, and the 4 flights of steps at the 4 sides run 28 feet in depth. The doorpost to the shrine, which is situated at the courtyard, is 27 feet in height, and the stupa is a foot underground. This stupa belongs to the Sagalika sect. It is also believed that a part of a sash tied by the Buddha is enshrined here. This magnificently enormous structure is honored for its vastness and is venerated for the Buddha's relics manifested inside. King Dutugamunu, after defeating King Alara, built the Mir Shiveti stupa. After placing the Buddha relics on the scepter, he had gone to Tiawisia for a bath, leaving the scepter. After the bath, he returned to the place where the scepter was placed, and it is said that it could not be moved. The stupa was built in the place where the scepter stood, and to this day, Buddhists honor this sacred scepter in the Mirasaveti stupa. Another stupa in Anuradhapura, Abhayagiri Dabaga, was found in the 2nd century BC and has grown into an international institution, attracting scholars from all over the world and encompassing all shades of Buddhist philosophy. The term Abhayagiri means not only a complex of monastic buildings, but also a fraternity of Buddhist monks, or Sangha, which maintains its own historical records, traditions, and way of life. Abhayagiri's Buddhist influence can be traced to other parts of the world through branches established elsewhere. Thus, the Abhayagiri Dabaga developed as a great institution in the relation to the Mahavihara and the Jetavana Buddhist monastic sets in the ancient Sri Lankan capital of Anuradhapura. King Dutugamunu built the Rinwalve Stupa in Anuradhapura, Sri Lanka in 149 BC. King Dutugamunu built the stupa in the fulfillment of his religious zeal towards Buddhism. This colossal masterpiece was constructed to an erecting height of 338 feet and stretches a wide 293 feet across. After its completion, it belonged to the Mahavihara Vaisans of Orthodox Buddhism in Sri Lanka. The Rinwalveli Siya remains as the most revered object of worship among all Sri Lankan stupas, preserving the relics of the Buddha. Polonnaruwa was the second capital of Sri Lanka after the destruction of Anuradhapura. Polonnaruwa, Sri Lanka's medieval capital, was established as the city of the land in 11th century AD. Polonnaruwa replaced Anuradhapura as the capital city of Sri Lanka because of the invasion of South India. It was the capital of Sri Lanka from 11 AD to 13 AD. Although there are many ancient sites in Polonnaruwa, the only one discussed in this paper is Galvihirya. Images of Galvihirya are the most impressive sculptures found in the ancient city of Polonnaruwa. Built in the 12th century AD by King Parakrambuhala, this rock shrine consists of 4 separate images of the Buddha in different postures, carved and cut from one long slab of granite rock, which is estimated to be a vast 56 yards in length. The first statue is a samadhi image in a meditative posture. The second is inside a cave. The third is a statue of the Buddha standing with crossed arms, and the fourth is of a resting Buddha depicting the passing away. The Galvihirya is a magnificent site in Polonnaruwa which allows Buddhists to marvel in the serene aesthetics of this rock shrine. In Sri Lanka, Kandy is an international religious center and is considered a World Heritage City. Among the many places of worship in Kandy, the Sri Dalida Maligawa, the temple of the sacred tooth relic of the Buddha, takes pride of place. It is sacred to the Theravada Buddhist faith because it contains a genuine tooth of the Lord Buddha. The Sri Dalida Maligawa is Kandy's main attraction and is the only ancient site of Kandy that is discussed in this paper. Without a doubt, the Sri Dalida Maligawa, or more commonly called the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic of the Buddha, is considered the most venerated place of worship in the Buddhist world. Since the 4th century AD, when the sacred relic was brought to Sri Lanka, it has since been the symbol of sovereignty for its rulers and has always been preserved in great splendor. The Sri Dalida Maligawa is a brilliant shrine due to its decorative walls, marvelous steeples, golden roofs, and beautifully detailed woodwork, which continues to be celebrated in honor of the Lord Buddha. Dikwella, Colombo District, and Brickfields, 3 different capitals of Sri Lanka, which contain sacred temples and sites established to worship the Buddha. The ancient sites that are discussed in this paper are Vivuru Kanala Vihara in Dikwella, Kalihina Raha Maha Vihara in the Colombo District, and Mahavihara in Brickfields. In the town of Dikwella lies one of the most amazing Buddhist temples in Sri Lanka. Vivuru Kanala Vihara temple is dominated by an enormous image of a seated and poised Buddha. The statue of the Buddha towers a 160-foot high, 8-storied building, making it the largest statue in all of Sri Lanka. Historically speaking, the statue dates all the way back to the time of King Rahadihe in 1782. Beyond the statue of the towering Buddha are the inner designs of the temple. The temple walls are adorned to show one of the path towards enlightenment by depicting hundreds of comic strip representations of the events in Buddha's life. The Kalania Raha Mahavihara, or the Kalania Temple, is located on the banks of the Kalania River in the Colombo District, and is one of the most sacred worshipping places in Sri Lanka for Buddhists, since it is a site made sacred by the 3rd and final visit of Lord Buddha to Sri Lanka. The Kalania Temple is one of the largest and one of the most beautiful temples in Sri Lanka. Very few modern Sri Lankan temples have any artistic or architectural interest, but the Kalania Temple is certainly an exception to this. Around the outside of the temple are pavilion-like cubbyholes with various sculpted figures located in them. This unique artistic detailing is why the Kalania Temple is one of the most beautiful in all of Sri Lanka. The temple is famous for its paintings inside of the temple, which depict important events in the life of the Buddha in the history of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, which is why Buddhists in all of Sri Lanka venerate the temple. Mahavihara, located in Brickfields, is a Buddhist site found by the Sinhalese community, the major ethnic group of Sri Lanka. The site was created to provide a place of worship in the Sri Lankan Theravada Buddhist tradition. This site is commonly called Brickfields Buddhist Temple, where the ultimate vision is to enable a Buddhist community to practice their beliefs in a caring and sufficient environment. Architecture in Sri Lanka holds immense significance for Buddhists because it is their continued way of honoring the sacred Buddha. To this day, Buddhists venerate the Lord Buddha in temples, stupas, and monasteries, which have all been constructed and refurbished in Sri Lanka's ancient capitals: Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Kandy, Dickwella, Colombo District, and Brickfields. One can accept true grandeur, magnificence, and respect for the beautiful architecture built in respect of the Buddha.